Hi, everybody. Thank you, Vijaya, for your introduction, and it's great to be here again. My favorite moment in the broadcast industry year, or should I say the TV industry year, to be at the BroadcastPro Summit. And for those of you who can't see it, and haven't seen it already, the hashtag, the Twitter hashtag, BPME, where are we? BPro Summit 2017, so get tweeting, yeah? I'm not going to try and break Ben Keneally's record for introductions. For those of you who remember that one, that was epic. So this is going to be brief. But first of all, really enjoyed the panel just a moment ago. For those of you who don't know so much about the production and distribution industry, I think it was really enlightening. And it also helps me to understand a bit more about the flow of this day, because now I can see how this session fits so neatly between the world of production distribution and the technical panel after lunch. So I hope we'll be able to sort of cover both of those areas. But it was a really fantastic, and personal congratulations to Heber, because I think she did a great job. So in terms of our panel, we're very fortunate. Well, luck has little to do with it because Vijaya is incredibly influential, as we all know. But we have today, starting on my left, Danny Bates, the CCO and co-founder of Stars Play, a former colleague of mine, another Showtimer turned entrepreneur. I wish I had $125 million of funding as well, but good to see you here, Danny. We have Martin Kranendonk, who is from iFlix, and somebody I just had the pleasure to speak to the first time yesterday. Discovered that apart from running a serious international player in OTT in terms of their telecoms growth in MENA, he also currently lives in Tehran with his other half and their 2 cats, which is a fascinating fact, I thought. And so Nadine Samra, who I literally just met this morning, but I don't know how that's possible because she's very visible, I know, in the industry, and a really fascinating individual. I thoroughly encourage you to learn more about her after the session. She's a techie geek, somehow turned entrepreneur, somehow turned corporate high flyer, and within her spare time, she helps women entrepreneurs through mentoring programming in the Cherie Blair Foundation. Like, really a multifaceted person, and great to have women on these panels as well. I think we all agree, right? And here we have Richard Franklin, the VP of Sales. Sorry, I didn't mention it. Nadine is the VP of Digital Business for Z5X. I do apologize if I didn't mention that before. Z-WAYAC is their product. We'll come on to it. So Richard, the VP of Sales for EMEA for Ideto. And Ideto, for those of you who don't know, has been the face of encryption, I'm looking at Robert at this point, for the last sort of 20 years at least, I'd say, in the MENA region. I mean, like, it's, if you want to protect your product, these guys have been doing it consistently for a very long time. And I've been trying to encourage him to scare the pants off of all the people on this panel, and those who are operating paid platforms in the audience as well. And finally, last but not least, my good friend Mr. Samageisa, the VP Innovation at Do, the guy that basically everybody on this panel wants to be cozying up to. And mainly because he's the most charming person on the panel, I think you'll agree. No disrespect to others, but he's a deeply charming man. So this panel is entitled "Internet Video is the New Normal," which I know is a bit of a cliche-sounding thing, but actually I came up with that name after a conversation I had with his co-founder, Maz Sheikh, I called him. He happened to be in the airport in Cairo. Turned out that he was on his way back, having just signed a deal with, I think, Orange in Egypt. And what was going to be a 5-minute conversation ended up being an hour-long conversation, where I finally woke up to the fact that OTT has arrived. For anyone who didn't notice, and we're still talking about in the next 5 years, it's happened. It's already here. And the reason I kind of realized this is because just talking to Mars, like the ARPU, the pricing was understood, the distribution in terms of how to work alongside operators, all these things were sort of clarified, and they're pushing for 1 million subscribers this year. So like, I did get permission to say that before he came on the panel. So anyway, so Danny, like, can you tell me from your perspective then, I use the question here, has the era of profitable OTT platforms arrived in MENA?
I think the era of OTT platforms has arrived in MENA. I think profitability is something that we're all looking at in terms of how we reach there. But I think it's arrived. I think it's still establishing. I think compared to 3 years ago, it's a completely different business now and is becoming more and more established with customers. I think what's really helped that to become established, one, funnily enough, Netflix coming into the region brought credibility, brought the segment exposure, and made the customers more aware of this as a segment and a way to enjoy TV. So I think that was extremely important in the last 3 years and actually helped us, funnily enough, as a business. I think the evolution of making the product simple, which is very, very key, the evolution of applications within smart TV, within products like Roku, Android TV boxes, to make OTT a TV viewing experience like any other. This, again, has really helped the product to grow and the proliferation to grow within the region. And in terms of profitability, I think, this is the aim for sort of all of us, here on this panel. And I think what we start to see is really that roadmap to profitability. We start to see now on an individual cost per acquisition level that we can generate a lifetime value of that customer that's profitable for us. And really, for us now, the key is growing that scale and that volume to manage those content fixed costs that you have as a business. But on a purely cost per acquisition level, we see a profit per customer now, and we see that route to profitability in the future. And really, for us, it's the key is the volume now.
Is there a magic number that you need to reach?
There's always a magic number. Yes, indeed there is. But I'll keep that one for me. Yes.
Somebody commented earlier on that I have this habit of asking questions in a way that doesn't feel too uncomfortable.
No, it's okay. It's good to ask, but maybe not to answer.
Digital TV report says that OTT revenues in the MENA region will quadruple to about $1.75 billion by 2022. So, I think there's definite trajectory for OTT, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And a magic number.
And a magic number.
And a magic number.
So, Martin, like, coming from an international perspective, like having sort of seen how iFlix worked in Asia and other markets and sort of applying, how would you describe the OTT opportunity in MENA now?
It's huge, but I totally agree with Danny that... is this on? No, it is. Yeah, the opportunity in MENA is huge, as it is in Asia, as it is in Africa. But I agree with Danny that the road to profitability for all of us is still a long road, right? I think we are all increasing our revenues constantly, which is a good thing. I think the SVOD market itself is growing exponentially. It is still relatively small.
1 second. I think we have a. This is possibly the mic that Heather was using.
Malfunction?
It's sort of coming in there out a little bit. Is it? Maybe if you could just.
I think. No. It isn't really interesting what I have to say.
I've got a mic on the stage just in case that's possible. Thanks.
Anyway. So,
to interrupt your flow.
do I have to continue now? It's working? Yeah, it's working. Yeah? Okay, cool. So, yeah, like I said, the opportunity... this is better than I can. Thank you. Thank you. Can everybody... No? Yes. Yeah, so like I said, the opportunity is huge. The road to profitability is still quite long. I also think the business models are going to constantly evolve. The strategies will evolve, and you will probably see a lot of changes happening in the coming 2 to 3 years.
Be more specific. What do you mean they're going to evolve? How are they going to change?
What you see, for example, when most asphalt players launched, Stars Play, IC Flick, Shahid here in the region, it was really a B2C play in the beginning. The telco partnerships came into play. The relationships, the partnerships are getting deeper and deeper, which is obviously important for us because they bring us skill, they bring us their data bases, their subscribers. And for the telco partners, it is also very important, right? Because we bring them something that most telco partners are not able to give their customers. So that is a step that has already been taken. And I think there's still a lot of room for this business model and strategies to evolve constantly in the coming 3 to 4 to 5 years.
I must admit, I mean, I was planning to bring Samer in next, so no WhatsApping over there, yeah? It's interesting, like watching the evolution. That's the thing I notice, the telco deals, and it's solving a few problems at the same time, right? You know, it's the marketing spend, it's the payment methods, it's the white labeling or the whitelisting of data, all these things. So do you think that of the telcos, I mean, do you think they are essential to the MENA growth? I mean, is it better to be B2C or is it better to be B2B2C?
Definitely from our perspective at the moment, B2B2C is the way forward.
Do you agree, Danny?
I think for us, we like the combination of both. You know, we like to be able to offer the B2C offering. We like to be able to establish our brand, establish our growth, establish ourselves and our product with customers. So it's extremely important, I think, that you have your own marketing channels to grow your brand and grow who you are as a company. But also we are, you know, work extremely closely with the telco partners because, you know, as was mentioned, these are the guys that really have the relationship with the customer. And importantly, they have the trust with the customer. One of the things that we're dealing with is we're online brands. And, you know, online as a place to buy and as a place to transact, there's a trust issue that is there and a trust that needs to build with that as an environment to transact. So, you know, working with a partner that has the scale of a Do, the ability to talk to the customers, ability to market to them, the infrastructure that's delivering to the customer, but also the trust of the customer is extremely important when we work with partners.
So, Samer, are you willing to trade your trust currency to boost the brands of Stars Play and iFlix?
I think we've been already trading this trust for a while. So the moment we extended our direct carrier billing, the ability to let our subscribers use their postpaid or prepaid credit to pay for digital services such as Stars Play, we did a few years ago, was I think the first attempt in saying we believe in this moving forward. This is the way entertainment is changing. As we were discussing outside, we are also seeing the effect on the traditional IPTV viewing. The moment the increase in OTT consumption happened, the decline in traditional IPTV viewing. So it is no longer the live streaming, channels that are making the highest click-throughs in our platform. But we're seeing, we're at a point where there's a decline in traditional IPTV viewing, except for sports and news, and there's an increase of OTT, but they haven't met yet. So still IPTV in terms of viewership, holds the majority, but it's very quickly declining. But we also see a very quick incline in OTT viewing. So as an example, my kids, or not a very good example because our house is full of gadgets and they have access to everything. They have no interest in watching linear TV anymore. When they want to watch a show, they want to watch it now, and they know where to get it, on which platform, and they have the devices to do it. So no longer anywhere where we are in the UAE or outside, they're able to watch what they want when they want. And I think that's that plus the personalization of the service is why OTTs are doing great versus the traditional, linear channels.
I mean, we're quite, as was mentioned earlier on during Claudia's presentation, we're quite blessed in the UAE to have such a fantastic fixed line infrastructure. So IPTV has a bit of an unusual advantage here. I mean, to your point, I mean, what I can say from the numbers we've seen is that linear viewing is still pretty solid. I mean, it dropped very, very slightly. I think it was 4% we saw on the analytics this year versus last year. But I think, given that the UAE is not yet an open market for IPTV, you can't sell to everybody on a fixed line basis. Presumably, that's a huge opportunity for Do to go into the more of an OTT area.
Correct. Our existing fixed footprint, from a market share point of view, is only 15%. Our competitor holds the rest. So, if the access to fiber was equal between us, we'd have a large majority of the market which we can go after. And vice versa. Of course, the competitor will be also able to attempt to acquire the base that we have. We have had actually success in areas and certain properties, and I can name one, where both us and our competitor exist in terms of fiber. And we've seen from activation point of view that we actually do fairly well, much better than our existing 15%. But we believe, that because we see this incline in OTT and decline in linear, that we need to look at the future in a different way. Meaning that, is it really worth it for the moment to push regulation, to invest billions into infrastructure, to extend the fiber all over the UAE again, although the existing fiber already exists? Maybe with the interest and the peaking of OTT, a collaboration with those OTT players ensures that we get the right content to the right users anywhere in the UAE without having to make such a huge investment. So it really is a matter of economics and business case. And we've been working and we've been discussing with partners how to make this happen. And we look forward to continuing these discussions and working with not necessarily one, but multiple players.
So going back to that point, we were talking before about, Stars Play as an example. They have their own brand. They really want to create that engagement at the consumer level. Do obviously has its own OTT offering. Where are you more comfortable? You just announced this deal for OSN's Wavo product. I mean, can you tell us how you see the Do position evolving?
Yeah. So I mean, maybe to start with our existing Do View product, which we call a multi-screen proposition. It is similar to an extension to your IPTV box. So if you have an IPTV box from Do called Do TV, you get Do View as a complementary service. It mirrors some of the channels we have rights to. So we have around 300 linear channels, plus we have a small SVOD library. But SVOD OTTs or SVOD services are not the same. And all the way up from, I don't want to say high-end, but a very global view of Netflix OTT services to all the way to mass propositions like what iFlix is promoting in the region. There are various flavors, and our subscribers, match that base. So we have the mass, so we're looking for, Asian. We have the, Arabic, but we also have some premium, a mix of entertainment that customers are looking for. Our proposition that we worked out with Wavo on an exclusive basis helps us reach a footprint, a segment of subscribers on the fixed category, which are outside of our fiber footprint. So if you're looking to get a service, a triple play service from Do out in the UAE, in areas where our footprint, fiber footprint does not exist in Abu Dhabi or Fujairah, Ras Al Khaimah, Sharjah, etc., even certain areas in Dubai, you won't be able to get a full-fledged triple play service. Working with OSN, we get a premium like, triple play OTT service with our double play, which is a virtual triple play. That addresses, again, with content that we get from Wavo, a specific segment. For our mobile base, we're also looking for a partner. We're looking also for various partners. We're looking for partners who can bring in the latest and greatest series from, Hollywood, but a good, nice mixture of Arabic and Asian productions. So
I'm going to stop you right there because that's a perfect segue, isn't it? So Nadine, 6 months into Z5 WAYAC, can you tell us about the product? How was it conceived, and what's the roadmap looking like, and how are you doing?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd like to start probably from Z as a broadcaster globally on an international scale. So Z has managed to have a large footprint outside of India and globally, whether it's in Middle East, Africa, or Europe. And I think we're following the steps of our company into the digital world and mapping, the broadcast side and making sure that we are existing on the digital side as well and be as strong as we are in linear. And that's the start of the investment when it comes to the digital side, when it comes to Z. And the first product outside of India was launched Z5 Wiyak, and we launched it 6 months back. It's an OTT service targeting Arabic audience in particular. So we are specifically, if you access the service, you're going to feel that you are in an Arabic platform per se. We have 2 interfaces, Arabic and English. All of the content is Arabic. So the content, in the content part, we have around 50% Indian dubbed content from our library, since we are a large content creator in India and producer. And the other 50% is Arabic content, acquired Arabic content from the market. At the same time, the way that I look into content is that, I look a lot at exclusivity. So we attempted in Ramadan to get 3 small series dubbed into Arabic just to launch them on Wiyak at the launch date with us. And we're going to continue doing this as well. So we're going to see in the coming few months, there are going to be 5 series exclusive on Wiyak that has not been aired on any other TV channel or available on any other OTT. So this is probably the direction that we're taking when it comes to the Arabic audience. And absolutely, we're not going to be forgetting the rest of the mass audience that we really care about when it comes to South Asians. And since I'm looking at the Middle East and Africa, then that goes for both of the territories. So we're going to be launching very soon also our BOD platform that targets these audiences in these different territories. Going forward.
Have 2 product offerings in the region, one targeting Arabs and one targeting South Asians is the plan.
Absolutely, that's the plan, and probably that's because I really believe in localization. So we see lots of international brands coming into the market, which is great. I mean, it adds into the options that a user might have. But I always also feel believe in localization, specifically for the Arabic audience, looking at the general diasporas and how the Arab communities are distributed in terms of people. You see like maybe 70-80% of the people who are really just interested in Arabic content. And probably that's the reason why I believe that Wiyak is a perfect fit for them. It's tailored in a way that it's coming out of this region for the region audience themselves.
How does it work from a pricing point of view? I mean, I know from talking to the guys, we haven't talked about it on stage much, but there's been a real sort of realization that $10, $12 ain't going to work. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, we're looking more like the sort of the $3, $3.50, maybe $4 price point. I don't want to kind of bring anyone back in just yet, but like, I mean, where's your pricing with your products?
So when it comes to Wiyak, it's an AVOD service for now, and we'll see how it's going to go forward. Especially, Wiyak is a global product by nature, so it's available everywhere. So things are going to be transitioning into more of a pay model, and at the same time, going back into the discussions of the telcos. Definitely, this is something that we're looking at as well in terms of expansion. When it comes to subscription, I think it's more relevant to our global product Z5, which is going to be coming into the market. We are still looking into the pricing model for this, specifically because of the diversity in the pricing in the region and the different players available as well with their different offerings at the same time. So I think we're going to be on the reasonable side of things and reachable for the mass audience. That's how I think things are going to be running.
Just going back to the panel we had before, I mean, you mentioned you're going to have some unique content on the service, which is fantastic news, I'm sure, for the producers as well. Like to hear that we're investing, the OTT providers are investing in original content. I mean, what do you see as is this going to, can you give us an indication of titles? And you mentioned, was it 5 titles you're going to have?
Yeah, so but the 5 titles are coming soon. They're not launched yet. We launched in Ramadan 3 titles. I don't know the names in Hindi, but we have given them Arabic names for that, like Qadari wa Nasibi and another 2 shows which people really loved. And it was a bit of experimentation because what we've done with these series is very unique. So normally what we know about the Indian series that they are lengthy and we have a lot of episodes in there. What we've done from a digital perspective is we redirected and reproduced these episodes to create a season that is between 15 and 22 episodes per series, and it is each episode is around 15 to 20 minutes. So we even squeezed the time for it, but it was fully redirected first. So it went through the re-editing, redirecting process, and then the dubbing process, and then putting into the platform. That performed really well. People really liked the idea. What we're going to be doing next is bringing full series, long form, rather than re-editing them. And we're going to be introducing them into the market, hopefully, by the end of the year. So that's from the content redirection perspective. But in terms of the exclusivity of the content as well, and probably this is also relevant to the panel discussion that has went earlier, is that, I mean, what differentiates us at the end of the day? I mean, being lots of global players coming into the market, having great content, and sometimes we overlap in content, and that's very common. I mean, you see lots of platforms where you see a lot of overlapping of content, and then it makes it, from a user perspective, it makes it for us a bit difficult to decide on which platform I should be going. And I believe going forward and in the future, having this original content created by these OTTs would be a big differentiator. Probably Netflix has already started to do that, but I think that will be the way for most of us. So let's see how it's going to go.
Richard, thank you for being patient with me. There's obviously so many commercial areas that we can touch on here. Before we sort of dive into the sort of piracy part, I mean, have you any observations based on what you've heard in terms of the MENA market, sort of generally, and what the opportunities should be based on what you've seen internationally?
No, I think I would agree with the general theme was that OTT revenues and growth is likely to continue and accelerate over time. I think there's a number of data points in the market. I mentioned one before from Digital TV Report about quadrupling of OTT revenues by 2022. Another piece of information from iData suggests that subscribers to paid television services will double in the next 5 years in the MENA marketplace. I'm not 100% convinced that all of that is going to be in OTT. I think that DTH still has a very strong play, and again, the market data supports that about 80% of viewing is still on DTH. So I think there's an opportunity in a market this diverse and this significant for consumers to get their content from a number of other places. But as Samir suggests, I think that the younger generation's viewing behaviours are changing such that linear TV really isn't as appealing as it used to be. So it is going to be a situation for the likes of people on the stage to ensure that they deliver services that are attractive to all those different viewing types and demographics.
Okay. I mean, obviously we do have, taking Shahid as an example, 20 million uniques, or, I don't know exactly how many million uniques, but a significant number, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, you've already attracted a large number. What can you share it?
Hello.
I think it was 1 million, if I'm not mistaken, uniques. So already, that's on an AVOD basis, on a free-to-air basis. So the consumers used to free-to-air TV stations, moving to potentially free OTT. So it's still to get that appetite to actually to pay. How do you see that working best? From your international experience, Richard, to getting people to move up and to a pay environment.
I think AVOD is an increasingly challenging proposition for operators and advertisers, right? I don't think the operators are necessarily getting a return on that. I think the advertisers are increasingly resistant to advertise in traditional models. So I think from our perspective, we would see that subscription services are increasingly the way to evolve a paid television service, whether it's on a unique stream basis or as part of a bundle, the likes of Netflix. But I'm not sure that there's a lot of comfort that the traditional AVOD model works.
So, I mean, I'm curious to know the views of the panel on this point before we go on, because it's an interesting thing. I mean, AVOD clearly is delivering audiences. Is it delivering revenues? Is it undermining your propositions? I mean, is AVOD a good thing or a bad thing? I mean, it's obviously, we talked about before, you don't want to be a catch-up service. You want to like have unique content. But like, what do you think, Danny?
I think we talked about this earlier. The market is still so much to evolve, and I think we're, for us, and I'm sure for iFlix as well, we're learning all the time how to monetize our product. The challenge, for the OTT providers, whichever market, AVOD or SVOD, is how to get that monetization. And that's really the key now that we're working on. So it's really about the type of the content you provide.
These guys have a competitive advantage, don't they? Because they're sitting on a fantastic library of content. They've got, an existing ad sales revenue stream to support the new product. How can you compete with that?
We have a subscription revenue model. So this is how we can compete with that, by bringing, again, content that, one of the things that we work very hard on is to bring content that we feel can be monetized, which is very, very important. Not all content has the ability to be monetized on a subscription service, I don't believe. Arabic, for example, on its own, is very hard to monetize. You have people like Shahid in this region that are very, very strong on a free basis. So trying to compete with Shahid and monetize Arabic content as a standalone is very, very tough. But if you can start to bring to the consumer content that is exclusive, is in the first window, has just come from Hollywood, contains the stars that they want to see, this is when, for us, we see that you have a chance to monetize product and actually take the customer over the paywall.
I can feel some reactions in the audience to this. It's a very, very interesting line. Sama, you have a comment on this.
I have some maybe provocative news I wanted to share, because I think, to be very honest, Arabic content specifically is in a self-destruct mode. We are generating Arabic content only for 30 days of Ramadan. First of all, that was not the purpose of Ramadan, to watch all the Arabic series you can. But then the rest of the year, people are just doing nothing, and they're looking around for Arabic content, bits and pieces online, the odd movie that comes out. So I think we're doing Arabic content the wrong way in the MENA world. So I think this first needs to change. Shahid is not doing Arabic content a favor, to be very honest. Yes, they get some viewership on their live linear channels, but it's a catch-up service no matter what you name it. People still go back and catch up what they missed. I really find people who go back and watch another series, maybe this is a 1%ers. But the reality is that we need to spread the content across the year in order to get proper productions that have not only local but regional and global appeal. And that requires a change in the mentality, and people need to learn to pay for content. Premium content costs a ton of money to produce. In order to probably get that quality, you need to be able to educate the customer over time that it's not going to be free during Ramadan. Okay. You're going to have to pay for it throughout the year.
Is Do willing to throw some money at original content?
That was my personal view. I will not. We have explored, and we still explore finding the right content. I mean, if you look at the regional OTT players that are coming in, the smart ones will not be the ones who go out and say, let me get the brand name X actor from this series and that actress from that series and this writer. And, they will look on the stories that actually impact regionally and probably globally. And they will get actors and actresses that are starting up from, if you go on social media, there are millions of followers and hundreds of thousands of followers on a few of self-made actors and actresses. This is what they're doing. They're going on social media because they have no other way to show themselves. So if you start with this, with a really nice script, really well written. I mean, if you look at some of the books, we were just discussing this in the break, some of the stories that are made in the Arabic world, If they were made into series and properly written as scripts, you will have some really big blockbusters. But this transformation, this skill, we don't have in the Arabic world, so we need to learn. It takes time. We're happy to contribute in terms as an organization from a grassroots level, instead of industrial, yes, let's get all the big players together and let's do something. I think it's better if we support any accelerators, incubators of such skill sets, and have this grow bottom up instead of the top down.
iFlix, I think, was already referenced. You have invested in original content, Arabic content.
Correct. Yes, we produced a Egyptian series during Ramadan, which performed very well, and obviously Ramadan, specifically for an SVOD player, is a difficult time to compete with the likes of NBC, etc. They pretty much own that spot. But we did very well. We were very happy with it, and we are definitely continuing producing originals in the future.
I mean, Nadeem was able to name a number of shows, but can you do the same?
No, I can't. But for sure, in the next year, you will see originals, Arabic originals on iFlix, Mina.
I mean, it seems like a marker that iFlix has managed to create of being in this space to invest production budgets, which
correct. And we don't just do it in MENA, we also do it in Asia, for example. Any SVOD player who starts with producing originals starts with a comedy show, which we also did. Netflix is going to do that here in the MENA region too. And now we are actually going into scripted shows, co-producing movies. I believe in the Philippines we co-produced a movie that was launched in the cinema, and I believe 2 weeks later it was on our platform in the Philippines. So these are all original strategies that we are looking into.
The two individuals either side of you very generously shared some numbers. Are you able to talk about iFlix's penetration at this stage? I mean,
penetration.
Yeah, in terms of MENA, in terms of your audience base at the moment.
We're still very young. We launched in May, right? So it's about 6 months. We're very happy with the relationship, the partnership we have with Zain, which is our JV partner, and that has definitely helped us grab a large market share in a number of countries. Not all the countries have gone the way we hoped. We are learning. It is a partnership between a telco and an SVOD player. We have different cultures, agility, ways of working, and sometimes things go really well, and sometimes things don't go as well, so we try to fix it as quick as possible, right? But on the whole, we are really happy with the way that partnership with Zain has been and is evolving.
I'd love to talk more about this one, but I do want to get onto the subject of piracy for a moment, because I think that there was a thing that came out yesterday, actually, ABI research report. Video service providers losing between 6 and 8 billion per annum from piracy. And then another one, the same press release, digital TV research you already referenced, they're talking about it being as much as 31 billion. I don't know quite who to believe, but clearly it's a big number being lost internationally. So, should we be concerned about this in the region? I mean,
Thanks for the softball on that one. I appreciate that. Look, we commissioned some research recently that told us that 59% of the respondents in the GCC had access to legal pirated content.
So repeat that.
59% of the respondents interviewed in the GCC had accessed or acquired illegal content, pirated content. That's an enormous number. An enormous number. When you look at millennials, that number goes up to about 62%. So if you look at the next generation coming through, right, how they perceive content, how they perceive how they should be entitled or allowed to acquire content, we're seeing a shift towards a pirated model. So yeah, it's a significant problem specifically in this marketplace. It's being proliferated by, access to illegal IP TV, restreaming devices. So end of last year, we did some research. We identified 2.7 million advertisements on e-commerce sites, eBay, Alibaba, Amazon, for acquiring or purchasing illegal, restreaming devices. That's an enormous problem. An enormous problem. I mean, some will say it's almost so big, don't do anything about it. And that is, of course, an option. But the people that it's really going to hit are the people in this room. You're all going to be really significantly impacted by this increasing scourge in this community.
Can you explain how it's going to hurt people? Because I think, it's a bit like DR strategy. Everybody knows you've got to do it, but we'll do it next year because our CapEx budget's already used up this year. Why should it matter to people now? Who should it matter to specifically and why?
Well, I think it matters to rights holders, right? Because ultimately they're not able to license content to operators at the same price point that they might if those operators were able to attract the number of subscribers that they may have originally. It obviously hits operators or broadcasters who are subscribing content because password sharing or illegal access to that content prevents those operators or broadcasters from signing up legitimate subscribers. It also hits consumers because the reality is that piracy is a crime. It follows necessarily that the people that run piracy sites are criminals. Not criminals because they're pirating content, criminals because that's the very nature of piracy. These people are often involved in, significant other criminal acts, money laundering, other illegal pursuits. So there's a problem for consumers in that password information or credit card information that's provided to subscribe to these services is being used, on the dark web. The service itself is not actually giving them exactly what they want. Malware is being delivered potentially onto their PC. So it hits everybody in the chain: the rights holders, the broadcasters and operators, and the consumers.
So, if everyone agrees that I recall distinctly Reed Hastings saying at some point that piracy was his friend. I don't think they think that anymore.
I'm sure he says that now.
but here, there's still such an appetite for free. Do you guys get hurt by piracy, or is it helping to get your brand out? What do you think about piracy as a is it in your top 5 things?
No, to be honest, no. I think piracy is a reality. It exists. We can spend a long time trying to fight piracy and get nowhere. And you can spend a lot of time and focus worrying about something that you can't influence.
So how can you persuade this guy to spend? How much is it going to cost him to invest in his future protection?
It's not just mine. That's the problem. All of the content from all of the players needs to be secured. It's really at that level.
I think, in a way, Danny's kind of summarised what the problem is, and that is a lot of people kind of say it's not my problem. I can't control the whole thing, so therefore I should do nothing. And I think our view is that everybody needs to do something. No one can solve the problem singularly. It's an industry problem. The studios absolutely have to do more. There are some studios who are very, very proactive, very, very strong. Fox, Disney, good examples of studios who are very, very proactive, right, in managing piracy. But there are other rights holders that are not, and I think they need to step up and do more. I think the operators need to understand that they're inherently in a problem that's going to impact their long-term revenue streams. If they do nothing about it now, the problem's not going to be maintained. It's not static. It's only going to grow. So there needs to be a common approach from all of the different touch points in the industry to do more. And everybody has to do their bit and understand that they may not be able to control the entire problem or fix the entire problem, but what they do over the long term may have an impact. It may not, but that doesn't mean that we should do nothing.
Vijaya, just checking, how am I doing for time?
Not much time.
Do you want me to start on questions now? Okay. I think the piracy thing is an interesting one, so I'm going to ask specifically if the audience has any questions or comments regarding piracy. You see, this is the thing, isn't it? It's so important. We all know it's important, and yet...
Maybe you should ask the audience by raising hands if piracy is relevant to them, and are they suffering from it? Is their business in jeopardy because of it? And what are they doing about it? I'd like to see just from the audience, because I think we have a good mixture of representatives here.
So, is anyone in the audience in jeopardy from piracy? Oh, somebody over there. Can we get the microphone over to back? I can't quite see.
While he's passing the mic, I mean, let me say this. People may think that they don't need to do anything in terms of proactive strategies around managing piracy, but the reality is a lot of your large rights holders are going to enforce the operators to do something about it in the years ahead. You know, we fully anticipate organisations, you know, primary sports rights holders to enforce watermarking, forensic watermarking as part of the next generation licensing agreements. We fully anticipate as a result of the enhanced content protection rules, you know, developed by the studios, that watermarking will become a fundamental component of 4K content, of distributing and licensing 4K content. So getting out ahead of it, understanding the issue, understanding the technologies that can actually help solve these problems or address these problems is going to be part of the reality, whether people like it or not, because the rights holders will impose it.
Have we got the microphone over there?
Yeah. Hi there, it's Darren White, MPP Global. I'd just say any supplier to the industry, we need everyone to be successful, so we're all at risk from piracy, I would say.
Yeah, I agree, 100%. That's spot on.
I think until it taught, you know, I know that you won't give specific examples, but I can think of one straight away where a pay TV platform was forced by a rights holder. A regional pay TV platform was forced by a rights holder to do a rapid box swap, I think in a period of less than 6 months, in order to comply. So that was, Danny, you probably know the numbers better than me, but it must have been a $20 million spend to do something like that.
And by the way, that's with the rights in that agreement at the time, right? The licensing agreement at the time. Those licensing agreements are going to become more onerous on the licensees. So that will give the rights holders, you know, much greater capacity to enforce those kinds of rules.
And they already are. I mean, you look today, already we have very strong DRM protection rules we have to adhere to with the studios. So, you know, there's something that is there happening today that we try to adhere to. And I think part of this will come from technology and how the technology improves to protect the content into the future. And I think part of it will come from regulation and how the regulations apply and how these sites ultimately can be taken down. This is a huge part of solving the puzzle. But when you're a company, and I don't know for others on the panel, but when you're a company and you said about your top 5 problems that you worry about, you know, at the moment I'd rather worry about giving them a service at the right price with the right content that they can access and they can enjoy and with Arabic subtitles and on their TV than trying to invest today fighting something beyond the DRM side that I can do that's very, very hard to see a return from in the near future.
I just have a comment. I think video needs to probably also evolve into a similar way the music industry evolved. Right now, I don't think you hear a lot of issues with piracy with music. I think the evolution happened there where the content itself became affordable. And once it became affordable, there was no need anymore. I mean, why do pirates pirate content? It's because there is still very high value in giving an alternative to a very high premium that is paid to the content producers.
Presumably, like, once we get an environment of pay, an acceptance of pay, then anti-piracy measures become much more relevant at that point, like a broader acceptance of pay content. I mean, just going back, you as an operator, I mean, are you at the stage now where, because I think of it as a consumer point, if piracy is a financial question, if I've got the choice between buying a service from you and paying for the bandwidth for my pirate service, if you're giving me the bandwidth free of charge, then I might end up spending less anyway by buying an OTT service from you. Is that something you're doing?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think the concept of free of charge is, overinflated because everything has a cost, right?
What I mean is included in my
package. Yes, correct. So that has worked for us very well when we did our music bundling. So we work with, again, a local startup called Anghami. We bundle their music proposition. And any user with a specific plan means it generates for us a certain revenue and above, they get this free of charge. So, and we've seen the numbers, grow dramatically. And we've seen that it has also benefits on additional consumption of data when it comes to mobile. So it's a double advantage. I think video would be exactly the same, meaning the more we are able to bundle such propositions for home and for mobile, affordability and availability will be available for the users, where again, they will not suffer having to go at night and click to VPN, which is illegal, and download BitTorrents, etc. And they will say, I have it available, it comes in good quality in HDR, without having the first-person view on a camera in a cinema, which is not the right way to watch content.
Who in the room remembers his predecessor saying on this stage, I believe, that 92% of the traffic on the network was torrents, and that he was a torrent user himself, which I thought was priceless. Any torrent users in the room? Funny. Do we? I know Vijay is going to chase me any second. So
Any criminals in the room?
Any torrent users on the panel? Any more questions before? Yusuf. Let's hear it from you.
Just regarding the piracy, we talk a lot about this issue in MENA region. Is there any figure how much each entities like OTT platform they are losing as a number per year, for example? Because this number is very good as a reference for the technology people to understand the amount of investment they require to build a secure data or how to protect this data.
I think, Martin, can you have a go at this one? I'm just thinking because you've got the international and the regional sort of thing. Wait, what Yusuf's asking, and I think to be specific, we already had some international numbers. You're talking here about regionally, what kind of number is being lost through piracy? I mean, it's.
I think in Asia it was about $6 billion last year.
So any sense of what the number might be here?
Honestly, I have no idea, but it'll probably be a little bit higher, I would think. But it's really difficult to put a number on that, right? But it's in the billions.
So in principle, there's $6 billion on the table if somebody can solve the piracy issue. I think the problem is, as Danny was alluding, is everybody has to step up at the same time. And that's the challenge that Richard's sort of, and I do admire you. It's not an easy job that you have to do at all. So.
It's a very, very difficult challenge, and it's very easy for people to ignore the problem, but it will become a problem, and it will become a problem for Danny. It's not in Danny's top 5 today, but all things being equal, I hope it's a problem for you in the years ahead.
As a next Showtime, we both know the problems of being hacked and the benefits. So any other questions? Robert? There's one over here. Okay, so the gentleman over there.
Hello, Brahim Larik here from New Line. We heard a lot about video on demand. Is there anything that you guys think in terms of live on demand or live events on demand? My second question would be also, we see the rise of virtual MVPDs, so perhaps this is more relevant to you, Samer. We see also in the telco space the rise of aggregating the aggregator. So do you see yourself becoming the kind of consolidating all those services into one app in Do, for example?
Maybe to address the first one, or the question, can you hear me? Is it on? Okay. So the concept of aggregating the aggregators is something that I personally dream of creating, because I believe all the assets that are out there are different in nature. I mean, even from a personal viewing habit, I would watch something on Netflix, and then when that season is over, I would jump to Stars, and then, once that season is over, I would watch some other genre on other OTT, etc., etc. So now, if I can access all this metadata, and I would be able, to give a superior experience to our subscriber, but aggregating all of this and adding my own spin on top, which is, of course, the linear, the events, like you're saying. So linear is still healthy, but it's been focusing more and more only on sports and specific live events that happen, whether it's news, etc. And I believe that will also face a disruption very soon, because the likes of Facebook are now in Europe, acquiring rights for linear sports. That means very soon that disruption will reach us in our region. So we need to be ready for it. And we, from an enabler point of view, have the infrastructure capability to support anybody who wants to aggregate, but we already started aggregating. We have, as I said, 300 channels on our companion app. We have 1,000+ channels on our IPTV. They're all streaming. And we provide, as part of our Samacom, some of our colleagues are here today, uplink capabilities, digitization, cloud-based, hosting, etc. We offer all these services as a service to broadcasters also.
Nadine, I presume this is where Z can really benefit. I mean, you pretty much, when it comes to OTT, I don't know that you have any competitors yet in region in terms of that South Asian audience. I mean, I'm prepared to stand corrected. I don't want to be doing advertising, although you are a sponsor. But this is presumably like this idea of an aggregator would work quite well for Z, wouldn't it?
Regarding this point, definitely, can you hear me?
Can we get the volume up on
Hello? Not yet. Okay, so regarding the LOD, definitely it's part of our strategy, specifically for the global platform that we're going to be launching. So it's going to have all of our TV channels on it behind a paywall. I believe that what we are trying to do is basically bring as much content and convenience and a product that's easy to use and very comprehensive to the end audiences. I think that's our ultimate objective, and accordingly have the VOD available when it comes to whether it is catch-up, whether it is premium content, and at the same time LOD with a catch-up service within the on the digital front. So with that proposition, I think it will be a very comprehensive offering for the end user.
Could you see a situation though where your product was bundled within a variety of, as to Sama's point, from a consumer's perspective, it's kind of a pain to have to subscribe to this one and then that one and so forth. Like, it seems like when platforms are directly competing, it's tough, but like for you, potentially you'd be very complementary to a lot of these services, right?
Yeah, I think when it comes to Wayak in particular, I think this is a consideration that we definitely gonna look at when it comes to trying to bring as much content as possible to the end user, probably through collaborations, partnerships, maybe telcos. I mean, I think I'm a bit, from that perspective, I'm very open into, looking at different business models from that front, and I see the value of it for sure, especially with the bundles. I mean, it has been used, and I think it is a very good proposition for both of the telcos and even the service providers and the OTTs in the region, or aside even from video. So I think in video it's going to be working very well from that perspective.
That's smart. Is he? He's got his mic.
Hello. Nick, you teased us in your intro with one interesting number, your conversation with Maz Sheikh, where you mentioned 1 million subscribers in the future for Stars, I believe.
By the end of the year. 1 million paying subscribers.
1 million paying subscribers.
By the end of the year.
By the end of
2017.
17. Congratulations. Yeah. That's very interesting. And that brings to, like, I guess my question was back to the title of your panel, which is Internet Video is the New Normal. It is, when you define normal, I'd like to get back to data. In an earlier presentation, Eutelsat gave some very good, very interesting data, talking about 58 million satellite TV homes. That's a large number. I believe that's showing a growth compared to a year ago of a couple million, whether it was 2 or 3, I'm not sure. There is a lack in our region of transparency in terms of data, subscriber numbers. There's been a lot of talk, but it tends to be inconsistently reported. That is the basis for defining what is normal. What are people actually using? How are they actually watching TV? There are 4 operators up on the panel. Would you all like to take a whack at where is the industry today in terms of the OTT industry, in terms of total numbers in this MENA region? And where do you think it will be at this conference next year?
I mean, I still think in this region it's very early days for OTT. I think it's something that is now starting to blossom. It's taken a few years and is now starting to blossom. So I still think it's in the very, very early days of OTT services. If I was to estimate and guess, I don't have the data, but including our friends at companies like BeIN, who have BeIN Connect and this sort of stuff, I would imagine today, outside of piracy, which would greatly lift that number, I'm sure, there's probably 2.5, 3 million OTT subscribers paying subscribers in this region today. Would be my estimate, thinking of the numbers probably with iFlix and BeIN and these main companies here and Netflix and so on. So this would be my estimate probably of where the market sits today. But I think what's so exciting about the market is it is still very early, and it really is still growing. And we see that in our consumption, we see that in the demand for the product, and we see that in the pickup of customers and how they start to use different devices, how the smart TV has become so much more important as a device to the customer. Even for the manufacturers, you know, smart TV maybe 5 years ago in this region was almost like a gimmick to sell the TV. Whereas now smart TV is becoming a fundamental part of the viewing experience. And you talked about data as share, sort of a number with you. We look at today, over 50% of our consumption today happens on the big screen on smart TVs. We think by the end of the year that'll be 65, 70%. So those are the indications that give us signs that it is becoming more and more part of the daily viewing experience of consumers.
And Robert, don't forget the other thing we haven't mentioned at all, 5G. There are currently 4 telecoms operating at scale in the region. There's, I think, about 80 telecoms operators in the region, the majority of whom will have access to sufficient bandwidth in, 2-3 years' time to be able to deliver these services.
I would only add, thank you very much, and thank you, Danny, for that estimate. I would be interested in
Rob,
hearing from the others.
I have to close now. I'm standing here on the stage. No, we have to close now. You had your chance. I'm sorry. But that question can be asked after the panel discussion. I'm sorry, but we are getting very late for lunch.
Sorry, Vijay.
So shall we wrap up? So you say you...
Well, I think it only remains for me to thank our panel and thank you for bearing with us, and tummy's rumbling, but